It's, her name is Jean Larizio, Your Honor, but she is the secretary and counsel to the Boston licensing board.
Right, but it's Larizio?
Larizio.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez, a question has been raised regarding whether one of your attorneys may have a potential conflict of interest that might affect his representation of you, so I'm going to be asking you a few questions. If at any time you have any difficulty hearing or understanding me, please let me know. Have you taken any medication today or within the last 24 hours?
No.
And are you under the influence of any drugs or alcohol at this time?
No.
You have a right under the Constitution to be represented in this matter by an attorney who's fully on your side and able to represent you without any conflicting loyalties. This means you have a right to be represented by a lawyer free from any conflict of interest and whose commitment is solely to you. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And you also have a right to be fully informed of any conflicts, including potential conflicts, that might exist, and to waive any such potential conflict, and to continue being represented by this attorney, or if you prefer to have a different attorney. Do you understand that?
Yes.
An attorney has a duty to do his best to advance the interests of each of his clients. Do you understand this?
Yes.
I've been informed that Mr. Rankin once represented one of the witnesses who is scheduled to be called today, Ms. Larizio, and that the cross-examination of this witness will be done by Mr. Fee, who is in a different law firm than Mr. Rankin and Mr. Sullivan. Do you understand that this circumstance potentially could give rise to a situation in which your attorney would have a duty to another client? Do you understand that? If you could just indicate, Mr. Rankin, when did your previous representation of this other person end?
I don't have a precise recollection, Your Honor, but I would estimate about 4 years ago.
Okay. So it was on a matter unrelated to the defendant's criminal case?
Correct, Your Honor.
Do you understand you're entitled to have your attorney keep your confidences and not to disclose to anyone else any confidential communications you have had with him?
Yes.
And do you understand that your attorney's other clients also have that same right, so your attorney is not free to disclose to you or to use for your benefit any confidential communications that his other client may have made? Do you understand that? Knowing this and that a potential conflict may exist, do you choose to continue to be represented by Mr. Rankin?
Yes.
And have you made that choice on your own, freely and voluntarily, without any pressure or inducement of any kind from anyone?
Yes.
And has anyone threatened you or made any promise to you of any reward or otherwise regarding your decision to keep Mr. Rankin as your counsel?
No.
And have you discussed with Mr. Rankin the nature of the potential conflict?
Yes, I have.
And have you received, I'm not asking you what you were told, but have you received legal advice from Mr. Fee with respect to the potential conflict?
I have.
And have you understood all the questions I've asked you?
Yes.
Is there anything you wish to ask me with respect to this matter?
No, Your Honor.
If at this time you choose to waive a potential conflict, and if you are convicted and you appeal from the conviction, you will not be able to raise on appeal the issue of one of your attorney's potential conflict of interest, because that issue will be held to have been waived. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
At this point, having heard all these explanations and understanding these matters, do you feel you are fully informed so that you can make this decision?
Yes.
Have you had enough time to think about it and to discuss it with Mr. Fee or with anyone else?
I have.
Are there any questions still unresolved in your mind or any other information that you think you need?
No.
Do you wish Mr. Rankin to continue to represent you in this matter?
Yes, I do.
I find the defendant has been fully advised of any potential conflict that Attorney Rankin may have with respect to this witness, and that he fully understands any rights he is waiving with respect to this matter and the consequences of such waiver, and that the defendant makes this waiver voluntarily, intelligently, and knowingly. You may be seated. We can bring the jurors back.
May I proceed, Your Honor? Sergeant, just before we broke, I started to ask you about the execution of 2 search warrants on June 18th. You recall that subject?
Yes.
Okay. And before we go into the execution of the warrants, you mentioned on direct examination, sir, that by June 20th, 2 days later, when you and your colleagues went to the dumpster at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, I think the term you used was media frenzy, right?
Yes.
Okay. And let me ask you this. When you went to execute those warrants on the evening of June 18th, is it fair to say that the agencies involved in this investigation were the North Attleboro Police Department, the Massachusetts State Police, and the Bristol County District Attorney's Office?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, sir, this matter had become, as you put it, a media frenzy by that day, June 18th, Tuesday. Isn't that true, Sergeant?
Correct.
Okay. So that, for example, when you showed up that evening at Aaron Hernandez's home to execute 2 search warrants, there were a whole bunch of TV trucks parked in front of his house, weren't there?
Yes.
And as you walked up to the front door to knock on the door with those warrants, you were being filmed by lots of photographers and lots of cameras, right?
More than likely.
Now, Mr. Lloyd's body was discovered shortly before 6 p.m. on June 17th, right?
I can't say when it was
Okay.
discovered
Because
exactly.
you got there a little later than that.
I did.
Okay. But is it fair to say that it was sometime in the late afternoon or early evening of June 17th, 2013, that Mr. Lloyd's body was discovered by law enforcement?
Correct.
Okay. And within 24 hours, by the time you got to Mr. Hernandez's home, 1 day later, on June 18th, there was a media frenzy, right?
Correct.
Okay. And there was a media frenzy because it had been revealed to the media that this investigation had something to do with New England Patriots tight end Aaron Hernandez, right?
Wasn't revealed from...
We haven't gotten to that question yet, sir, but is it fair to say that's why there was a media frenzy?
Objection sustained.
Well, whatever the reason, did you disclose to the media between June 17th and June 18th that this investigation had something to do with Aaron Hernandez?
Absolutely not.
Do you know who in the Massachusetts State Police, if anyone, disclosed to the media that this investigation has something to do with Aaron Hernandez?
No one to my knowledge.
Do you know who, if anyone, in the North Attleboro Police Department disclosed to the media between June 17th and June 18th that this investigation had something to do with Aaron Hernandez?
No one to my knowledge.
Do you know who, if anyone, in the Bristol County District Attorney's Office disclosed to the media between June 17th and June 18th that this investigation had something to do with Aaron Hernandez?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, is it fair to say that somebody did, sir? So you went there on the evening of June 18th. By there I mean Mr. Hernandez's home with 11 or 12 other officers, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you told us the warrants were for Mr. Hernandez's cell phone and the video surveillance system, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you knocked on the door and Cheyenne Jenkins answered. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And you showed her the warrants.
Yes.
And you said to her, you told us a few minutes ago, we'll be out of here as quickly as possible, right?
Be as minimally intrusive as we possibly can.
Is that what you told her, sir? Quote, "We'll be out of here
If
as
you'd let me
quickly as we
answer, I'll be
can"?
more than happy to. Yes, I said, we'll be minimally intrusive, and we'll be out of here as quickly as we possibly can.
Okay. And you went into the living room
Yes,
with a bunch of other officers, 11 or 12 other officers, right?
correct.
Okay. And you observed Aaron and his daughter, AVL, were both in the living room, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And at some point, Aaron picked up AVL?
Correct.
And shortly after you got there, Sergeant, am I correct that you went outside the house and called Assistant District Attorney Bomberg on your phone and then re-entered the house?
Correct.
Okay. And am I correct that shortly after you spoke to Assistant District Attorney Bomberg, you called Attorney Rob Jones at a law firm called Ropes and Gray in Boston?
No,
You did not call Attorney Jones?
I did not.
All right, let me ask you this. Did you get a phone number for Attorney Jones that you recorded?
I did.
Okay. And you then relayed that information to some other officers. Is that fair to say?
Trooper Collins.
Trooper who?
Trooper Collins.
Trooper Collins. Okay. So am I correct then that at some point, did you come to understand from your conversations with Assistant District Attorney Bomberg that evening that Mr. Hernandez's cell phone was with his attorney, Rob Jones, at Ropes and Gray in Boston?
Yes,
Okay. And am I correct that after you learned that, and after you obtained Attorney Jones's phone number, you contacted Trooper Collins?
correct.
Okay. Because you knew Trooper Collins was doing a detail at Logan Airport in Boston?
That information was relayed to me, yes.
Okay. And you needed somebody to go to Ropes and Gray in Boston and pick up Mr. Hernandez's cell phone, right?
Yes,
Okay. And, in fact, you instructed Trooper Collins, did you not, to go to talk to Attorney Jones, make arrangements to go to Ropes and Gray and pick up Mr. Hernandez's cell phone, right?
yes,
Okay. And that's what happened, right?
correct.
All right. Now, when you entered the home of Mr. Hernandez and his family that night, were you armed, sir?
Yes,
Okay. And what were you armed with?
my duty issue handgun,
What's that?
.45 caliber,
What make?
Smith & Wesson.
Okay. And were the other officers armed as well?
Yes,
Now, is it fair to say that once you learned that Mr. Hernandez's cell phone was at his lawyer's in Boston, the only item you were there to retrieve pursuant to your search warrants was the home surveillance system?
yes and no.
Well, you had a warrant for the home surveillance system, right?
Correct,
And you had a separate warrant for the phone, right?
correct.
And you knew the phone, now you knew the phone wasn't in the house, so there was no reason to rummage through the house looking for the phone, right?
We were told the phone was at the lawyer's office. Nobody had possession of it yet, and it wouldn't be the first time someone has lied to us and said, there's nothing here.
So when you made arrangements to have Trooper Collins pick up Aaron Hernandez's cell phone at his lawyer's office in Boston, are you telling us that you thought that was all some kind of a subterfuge and that the phone was hidden somewhere in the house? Is that what you're telling us, jury?
No.
Okay. So the home surveillance system was seized, right?
Yes.
Okay. And did you and your 11 and 12 colleagues rummage all through the house looking for the cell phone?
I don't believe so, no.
Yeah. But you and your colleagues were there over an hour that night, right?
Correct.
Okay. And did you do anything other than remove the home surveillance system during that more than an hour that you were in their home?
Did I? No.
Did your colleagues do anything else?
I can't say. You'd have to ask my colleagues.
Well, you were there for an hour, right?
I was.
What did you do during the hour that you were there, Sergeant Baker?
I was downstairs.
Downstairs in the basement?
No, on the first floor.
Oh, on the first floor. And what were you doing on the first floor for that hour?
Making phone calls, arranging for other things to be done.
Okay.
I had other obligations.
Well, did you see somebody with a video camera at some point videotaping each and every room of the house?
I did. Someone went by me with a video camera, yes.
So you have knowledge that that was done, right?
Yes, correct.
And did you see someone with a camera taking still photographs throughout the house while you were there?
Yes,
So you know that that was done, right?
correct.
Did you have a warrant to videotape and photograph the whole house, sir?
I did not know.
Well, was there a warrant that you were aware of that had been issued by a court of the Commonwealth authorizing the state police to videotape and photograph every room in Mr. Hernandez's home that evening?
I'm not aware of one, no.
Now, you told us that when you left the home that evening, you went outside into a mobile lab, right?
Correct.
And tell us what that mobile lab was, please.
It's like a big truck. It has video equipment in it and some other electronic gear.
Okay. Why'd you go in there?
I left with the computer crimes evidence guys to make sure that there was actually video on that surveillance system.
Well, you're not part of the, was it called the DEMS unit back then?
Yes,
And it's since changed its name to Computer Crimes Unit?
yes,
It's the same people, right?
yes.
Okay. When did it change its name?
I couldn't tell you.
All right, you're not part of that outfit, right?
I am not.
Okay. So, why did you have any role in going into the mobile van, mobile lab, to determine what was on those videotapes? Why was that your
I wanted to make sure
job?
there was actually video on that surveillance system.
Well, isn't it their job to analyze the tape and determine what, if anything, is on there? Isn't that part of their job?
Yes.
So, what did you have to do with that, sir?
By having them tell me if it's actually, and show me that there's video on it, I can report back to others that, hey, there is video here. It does not appear to be destroyed.
I see. So you were there just to get their report? Is that what you're telling us?
No, I was there to see if there was actually video on that system.
So you were pretty curious what was on that video, weren't you?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And about how long did you spend looking at videotape in the mobile lab that evening?
I wasn't there that long.
Well, give us your best estimate of how many minutes you were in there, sir, looking at
5
the
minutes.
tape. How many?
5.
Okay. Who else was in there while you were in there that night?
There were 2 Dem guys, or computer crimes guys, and I think there was one other trooper, but I can't say for sure.
And who was the other trooper?
I can't say.
Were there other people there that you just don't remember their names?
I don't believe so.
Any North Attleboro police officers there?
Not that I can recall.
Did you ask the Dems people to show you specific things on the video?
I asked them to show me the video.
Did you know that they were showing you the video from the original hard drive?
I assumed it was the original hard drive.
Did you know that when they showed you that video from the original hard drive, there was no write block program in place?
I don't even know what that is.
Now, let's move to Enterprise rental car on, that was 2 days later on the 20th?
Yes.
And that was in the evening, right, after the place had closed?
Yes.
Okay. And you had a conversation with Detective Elliott,
Yes.
and as a result of that conversation, you, Elliott, Lieutenant King, Captain Dorenzo, and Chief Riley all hustled down to Enterprise, right?
Correct.
Okay. And did someone contact Crime Scene Services and tell them it might be a good idea for them to come down to Enterprise?
Lieutenant King.
Okay. And was the indication that they were coming?
As far as I know, yes.
And you went there in a pickup truck or a cruiser, sir?
The pickup truck is my cruiser.
Oh, okay. So it's a state police issued pickup truck?
Yes.
Okay. But it's like a plainclothes pickup truck? It doesn't have any markings on it?
Correct.
Okay. And is there anything else special about that pickup truck in terms of the bed of the pickup truck?
No.
Did you sterilize the bed of the pickup truck before you went to Enterprise Rental?
No.
So when you got out there, did you tell us you physically moved the dumpster?
We did.
And did you move it over to near where your pickup truck was parked?
I don't remember if I parked my pickup truck there after the dumpster was moved or not, but
But at some point, you got your pickup truck, you got the bed of your pickup truck pretty close to where the dumpster was?
Correct.
Okay. And someone made a decision to go into the dumpster and take some stuff out, right?
correct.
Okay. Who made that decision?
I couldn't tell you.
Well, did you make that decision?
I think it was a collaboration. I can't say I made it. I can't say who made it.
Well, I think you're going to have to help me with the way that this works. You had North Attleboro people there, right?
Correct.
And including the chief of police was there, right?
Correct.
So he's the boss of that particular agency, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then you had several people from the state police, namely you and Lieutenant King.
Correct.
Okay. Was there anyone else from state police there?
Sergeant Moran?
Oh, there was someone else there, too?
Yes.
Okay. So in addition to you, Detective Elliott, Lieutenant King, Captain Dorenzo, and Chief Riley, there was also Sergeant Moran?
Yes, correct.
Anyone else?
That's it?
Okay. So there were 3 North Attleboro people, Chief Riley, Captain Dorenzo, and Detective Elliott, right?
Correct.
Okay. And there were 3 state police people, Lieutenant King, yourself, and Sergeant Moran, right?
Correct.
Okay. And in that situation, is there anybody who's, like, in charge?
I wouldn't say, no, not particularly.
Okay. So you're telling us that nobody in particular made the decision, hey, Baker, get in that dumpster and start pulling stuff out?
No, I think it was collaboration between us that someone was going in the dumpster and I volunteered.
Okay. And the decision was made not to wait for crime scene services, right?
Correct.
Now, let me just do it this way if I can. I did a 132 on the video screen. You said Detective Elliott was taking pictures that night?
Yes.
Okay. Does that look like the contents of the dumpster as it appeared to you that night?
Appears to be.
Okay. So that's what was in the dumpster when you climbed into it, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you started handing stuff out of it to other people? Is that what you did?
Correct.
And then they would put those items in the bed of your pickup truck? Is that how it worked?
Correct.
Okay. So after a while, this is Exhibit 133. Is that what the bed of your pickup truck looked like?
Yes.
Okay. And how'd you decide which items to pull out of the dumpster, Sergeant Baker?
I was told I was looking for a child's drawing, so I didn't take out the big trash bags. I took out the other items around.
You took out a lot of things other than those 4 items you told us about in direct examination, right?
Yes, I took out a lot of things out of the dumpster. Yes.
Okay. And they were all thrown in the back of your pickup truck?
Yes, they were placed in the back of
Pickup
it.
truck.
Yes.
Okay. And so, for example, in this photo 133, you can see in lower right-hand corner where I'm pointing, that's the back of the photo, I'm sorry, back of the picture with the shell casing and the blue chewing gum, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's one of the items that was put in the back in the bed of your pickup truck that night, right?
Correct.
Along with all this other stuff.
Yes.
Okay. And I think you told us that when you saw the picture, when you first saw it, the picture was crumpled up with the shell casing and the blue gum inside of the crumpled up drawing, right?
Correct.
And then you uncrumpled it so that it appears the way it does in this picture, is that right?
Correct.
Now, you told us that the decision for you to go in the dumpster and start taking stuff out was a collective decision, right?
Correct.
Who made the decision that stuff that you took out was going to get tossed into the bed of your pickup truck?
I can't say.
Was that your decision?
I don't believe it was my decision, but I can't say how we came to that decision.
Well, did you ever hear of evidence bags, Sergeant Baker?
Yes.
And did anyone consider that maybe it would be a good idea when you took some evidence, potentially important evidence, out of that dumpster, that maybe it should go into an evidence bag and not into the bed of your pickup truck, sir?
We didn't take that. The other items, we didn't take those other items.
I'm talking about the shell casing and the blue bubble gum and that child's drawing, sir?
It did go into an evidence bag.
After it
some
had
point.
been thrown into the back of the bed of your pickup truck with a whole bunch of other garbage, right?
Correct.
And did you tell us on direct examination, sir, that based on your training and experience, that that is an accepted practice to collect evidence in a homicide case, sir?
I didn't realize it was an accepted practice to recovering items from a dumpster. It's a dumpster.
Well, were you asked on direct examination whether this was an accepted practice, sir? Remember that?
I don't.
Is it an accepted practice to your knowledge to collect evidence that way?
I would say yes.
Where were you trained to do that?
From other detectives, it's not anything, I didn't do anything that crime scene services wouldn't have done. It was already in the dumpster with that other evidence. It was placed to the side, and from that point, ballistics took the shell casing, and the other items were...
Well, respectfully, sir, you don't know what crime scene services would have done because you're not part of crime scene services, right?
Correct.
Showing you Exhibit 135. It's a photo of shell casing and a blue bubble gum, right?
Correct.
Okay, you recovered that, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now I'm showing you a photo, 122H. That's a photo. That looks like a photo of the shell casing that was recovered that night?
Correct.
Okay. So, after you have this stuff in the bed of your pickup truck, did someone make a decision to take off the gum so that you could turn over to ballistics just 122H, the shell casing, without the gum?
I don't know when those photos were taken. I don't know. Last I saw, the gum and the shell casing and the drawing all together.
Okay. Okay. So, the last you saw, the gum and the shell casing, they were still glommed together.
Correct.
Okay. And so when you left Enterprise that night, the shell casing and the gum were still glommed together?
I can't say if they were when I left. I know crime scene and ballistics were doing their thing. I was off making phone calls again.
Well, that's fair. The last time you saw them, Sergeant Baker, they were still glommed together?
Correct.
So you have no personal knowledge of how they came to be unglommed, right?
I don't know.
Okay. And let me just ask you briefly about one other thing you did in this case. Were you present 2 days after that, on Saturday, June 22nd, 2013, at a search, the execution of another search warrant at Aaron Hernandez's home?
I believe I was there, yes.
Okay. And you were there for a number of hours that day?
I can't say how long I was there for.
Do you remember what you were there for that day?
It was a search warrant.
Okay. And a bunch of items were recovered that day?
Correct.
And did you have occasion to look through the house that day?
I did not look through the house, no.
What was your job that day?
That exact thing I did the first search warrant. I was there supervising. I basically was making phone calls and getting other things done.
Okay. And you didn't look through the house?
I did walk through the house, but I didn't partake in any search.
Thank you, sir. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Sir, when you went into the
dumps, or that you said you volunteered to do that?
Yes,
And you knew what you were looking for?
yes.
And that item itself was not in a container. What were you looking for?
Child's drawing.
Okay, and that is described as, you ultimately found that item, is that right?
Yes, correct.
And what was that made of?
It's like a cardboard style paper painted on.
Okay. And that wasn't in any, you didn't discover it in any form that it was being preserved, meaning like in a bag, is that true?
No, correct.
Okay. These other items that were inside were at least encapsulated in that paper?
Correct.
Okay. And you opened it for what purpose?
To see if it was the right drawing that would have the bubble gum and the shell casing inside of it.
And after that, that area was then placed on the back of your truck?
Correct.
But the gum and the shell casing didn't come in contact with anything else, is that right?
Correct.
Now, Mr. Sultan suggested in his questioning, you were tossing these things or throwing things into the back of your pickup?
No, they were being placed in.
Okay. When you were recovering items and handing them to somebody else, you know what the condition of the hands were of the people that you were handing to?
They were gloved.
And did you ever toss any of these items?
No.
And you indicated that the decision-making process, a collaboration, just describe what you mean by that.
They're all trained, good investigators, and we bounce ideas off of each other, and we come up with a game plan and a formulation to perform different tasks. And it's not one person, it's not a dictatorship where one person says, this is what we're going to do. We bounce ideas off of each other, and we come up with a game plan.
Okay. And with regard to, he had asked you about, Mr. Sultan had asked you about this practice when you're dealing with trash. Have you participated or seen crime scene services involved in searches through trash for items?
I have never known.
Okay. So to the extent that items have to be recovered out of the trash, do you know of a way that's different than the way you did it, getting in the trash, attempting to focus on an area with gloves on and recover these items?
No, it's not a sterile environment to begin with. It's trash.
And Mr. Sultan also asked you about the length of the search warrant. You indicated there was some information that the phone was, that you had learned while you were there, the phone's not here, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And did you attempt, in terms of whether you accepted that information or not, did you wait for some verification before you accepted that suggestion that the phone wasn't there?
I did not, but I did learn that.
Objection, something he learns from someone else.
Yeah, but at some point, did you have a conversation with Trooper Collins?
I did.
And do you recall, did you have then further conversation after he was supposed, you gave him information to go meet Robert Jones?
I did.
Did you then later have a conversation with him about whether that happened or not?
I did not know.
Okay, but did you have any conversation with anyone else that suggested information
Yes.
about whether that meeting had happened?
Yes.
Do you know when, approximately when that was suggested to you that he had met?
It was sometime after 8:30.
Okay. And that would have been how long after the search warrant began?
We started at 7, so
What is that?
it's an hour and a half.
Okay.
It was even later than 8:30 because
Is that consistent with your memory as to how long that search warrant lasted?
for me, yes. I had left. There were still other guys there, but I went out to the DEMS vehicle itself.
Okay, and the DEMS vehicle was located where when you went out to it?
It was parked on Wallace C. Meyer.
Okay. And Mr. Sultan asked you about, well, why would you be involved in watching the video, even that short clip that you've described? Can you explain why you were interested in watching that video?
I actually wanted to make sure there was video on that system, so number one, we knew we had the right system, and number two, it wasn't destroyed.
Okay. And what was your purpose in going to the home at 7 p.m. on June 18th to execute a search warrant?
To recover a video system from the house that would record what transpired at that location.
So did you think at that time that was important to verify whether there was any, after having executed the search warrant, to actually find out if there was any data or there was not any data?
Yes.
And lastly, he asked you about what kind of firearm do you carry?
Yes.
And what did you say?
45 Smith & Wesson.
Okay, when you say 45, what caliber is that?
45 caliber.
Okay, and that's considered,
Size of a bullet.
okay, is that considered a large, medium, or small caliber?
Large.
Approximately how wide are the rounds for a 45?
They're pretty big. They're,
You're indicating with your hands
yeah,
approximately?
that's, dime size, bigger than a dime.
Okay, you aware of any firearms that have a handgun for a higher caliber than a 45?
Yeah, I'm not a gun person, though, but I'm not aware of any.
I have nothing else, thank you.
Nothing further, Your Honor?
Gene Maurizio, please, Your Honor.
Please face the clerk and raise your right hand.
Ma'am, do you solemnly swear that the testimony about to give to this court and this jury will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Could you please state your full name and spell your name for the jurors?
Sure. My name's Jean Lorizio. It's Jeanlorizio.
And do you work, ma'am?
I do.
And could you tell the jurors, please, where it is that you work and what your duties and responsibilities are?
Sure. I work for the licensing board for the city of Boston. I am the board's executive secretary and legal counsel.
And when you say legal counsel, you're an attorney, is that correct?
I am.
And you're
Yes,
admitted to the Bar of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts?
I am.
And are part of your duties to provide legal advice to the licensing board for the city of Boston?
Yes.
And you also indicated that you're the executive secretary. Do you have particular responsibilities in regards to that position?
I do.
Could you tell the jurors, please, what that is?
Sure. I am the official record keeper for the licensing board. I also run hearings that are held 2 to 3 times per week. I write decisions for the board. I defend any decisions that are appealed to the ABCC or the Superior Court.
And what is the ABCC, please?
The ABCC is the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission. I also help manage the office.
And could you tell us, please, what are the functions of the licensing board for the city of Boston?
Sure. The licensing board issues and regulates several different types of licenses within the city of Boston, food and alcohol licenses, bowling alley licenses, fortune teller licenses, lodging house licenses, dormitory licenses, and I think that covers it.
And the issuance of a license, generally speaking, are those functions of state law and regulations of the city of Boston?
Yes.
And the compliance with the license, is that also a function frequently of state law and regulations of the city of Boston?
Yes.
And as a result of that, specifically in the area of alcohol licensing, are you familiar with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 138, Section 12?
I am.
And could you describe for us, please, what is Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 12?
Sure. Section 12 pertains to licenses which are issued for the sale and service of alcohol to be consumed on the premise.
Your Honor. I'd ask the court to take judicial notice of Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 12, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Now, and if I may approach. If I could, ma'am, you recognize what's in that document?
I do. This is Chapter 138, Section 12.
And specifically, ma'am, does that particular section of Massachusetts general law control when an establishment that is licensed to sell alcohol can not operate?
It does.
And could you tell us, please, ma'am, between what hours of the day can an establishment that sells alcohol not operate?
Between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. on Monday through Saturday, and between 2 a.m. and 10 a.m. on Sunday.
Right, so if on a Monday morning after 2 o'clock in the morning, an establishment that sells alcohol is prohibited from operating until 8 a.m., is that correct?
Correct.
And does that also prohibit them from, if you're licensed to sell alcohol, engaging in any other functions?
Yes.
Meaning the establishment has to be closed at 2 a.m., is that correct?
That's correct.
That's applicable to the city of Boston, is that true?
It is.
And is that also applicable to every town and community in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Laurizio.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Laurizio, I understand from your testimony on direct that Massachusetts law does not permit the sale of alcohol after 2 a.m. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I think you were also asked if the City of Boston Licensing Board has adopted that same limitation for establishments within the City of Boston. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, in effect, the law and the City of Boston Licensing Board set time limits on when commercial establishments can sell alcohol. Is that right?
Right. The board's bound by Chapter 138, Section 12.
Can you tell me, Ms. Laurizio, does Massachusetts law or the board set a time limit for a private party held by people in a private residence?
No, the board would have no jurisdiction over that type of
Does the board
function.
or Massachusetts law set time limits on, say, a private gathering that might even have alcohol that occurs in a hotel room that is rented out by someone?
No.
Does the Massachusetts law or the board set a time limit on when young people can drive in a car and listen to music?
No.
Does Massachusetts law or the board set a time limit for when young people can drive in a car, listen to music, and smoke marijuana?
Well, the board has nothing to do with that type of activity. I don't know if there are any laws that pertain to that type of activity, but the board certainly does not.
But there's no time limit. That can happen after, say, 2 a.m., can't it?
Yes.
Does Massachusetts law or the board in Boston set a time limit for when private gatherings can be held in homes in North Attleboro, Massachusetts?
No.
Does Massachusetts law or the board set a time limit on when gatherings could be held in a private residence in Franklin, Massachusetts?
The board does not, and I'm not aware of any laws that do.
Now, Ms. Laurizio, the board also regulates food establishments in Boston, doesn't it?
Yes.
And you issue, your board issues licenses to food establishments.
Correct.
And isn't it true, Ms. Laurizio, that you were asked about the board's licenses to food establishments in connection with this case.
Yes.
And in particular, you were asked about the time limits that the board places on the sale and service of food by commercial establishments in Boston. Isn't that right?
Yes.
And in fact, you were asked to produce a list of the food establishments in the city of Boston that were serving food after 2 a.m. on the morning of June 17th, 2013, weren't you?
I was.
And the board did not produce such a list, did it?
No.
Ms. Laurizio, are you aware of food establishments, restaurants, for example, in the city of Boston that are open after 2 a.m.?
I'm aware that some exist, yes.
There are, for example, all-night diners in the city of Boston.
I'd have to check records to be sure. I do know that there are some places within the city of Boston that are licensed to sell food after 2 a.m., but I couldn't speak to specific operations without looking at records.
Well, have you ever heard of a restaurant called Il Trafuno in the South End that's open till 4 a.m.?
I have not.
Have you ever heard of a restaurant in the Chinatown section of Boston called New Golden Gate Restaurant that's open until every day until 4 a.m.?
I have.
Now, the Chinatown section of Boston, that's also abuts what's called the theater district, doesn't it?
Yes,
And the theater district is home to several nightclubs, isn't it?
it is.
And are those establishments also regulated by the Licensing Commission because they serve alcohol?
Yes.
What time do the clubs close?
They would have to close at 2.
And also in the Chinatown section of Boston, there's a restaurant called the Peach Farm, which is open till 3:30. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
Have you ever heard of a restaurant called Chow Chow City at 83 Essex Street in the Chinatown section of Boston?
I've heard of Chow Chow City.
Have you ever heard it referred to as a favorite of hungry club goers serving till 4 a.m.?
I have not.
Have you ever heard of the South Street Diner, which is open 24 hours a day near
Yes.
South Station?
Yes.
Have you ever heard of Bova's Bakery in the North End, which is open 24 hours a day?
Yes.
So there are a number of locations that both you are aware of personally and what I have read.
Well, I'm going to strike what counsel has read, counsel on testifying.
Well, suffice it to say, Ms. Laurizio, there are a number of locations in Boston where food can be purchased after 2 a.m.
Yes.
Some of them up until 4 a.m.
Excuse me, yes.
And Ms. Laurizio, you don't have any personal knowledge about any of the facts of this case. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You don't know the nighttime habits of Aaron Hernandez.
I do not.
You don't know the nighttime habits of Odin Lloyd.
I do not.
You came to tell us that the bars close at 2 a.m. in Boston.
I came to answer questions about the licensing board and, regulations and laws pertaining to the board.
Yes, and you have. Thank you, Ms. Laurizio. Nothing
You're
further, Your Honor.
I think, ma'am, as you said, you can't have a restaurant open if they have an alcohol license after 2 a.m., correct?
Correct.
So if there's a place that's a club or a place to step out to, like Rumor, they can't operate after 2 o'clock in the morning. Is that true?
Correct.
Do you know of any clubs or restaurants in the North Attleboro Industrial Park?
No.
Thank you.
Nothing, Your Honor.
You may sit down.
Thank you.
Jose Lopez, Your Honor.
Right this way, sir. Please follow me. Please face the clerk and raise your right hand.
Sir, you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give to this court and this jury will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes,
Thank you.
Have a seat, sir.
thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. State your name for the record, please.
My name is Jose Lopez,
Could you spell your last name, please?
Lopez,
Sir, how old are you?
40.
And where do you live?
I live on 9 Facein Street in Boston, Mass.
Who do you live there with?
Live with my 2 children and my wife.
How long have you lived there?
13 years.
What do you do for a living now?
I work for the Social Security Administration,
And what do you do for them?
customer service,
What does that entail?
dealing with the public, finding out what their needs are and taking them from there.
How long have you had that job?
8 years, going on 8 years.
What did you do previous to that?
I worked for Cambridge Soundworks.
And what kind of a company was Cambridge Soundworks?
It's a home audio video technology.
And what did you do for Cambridge Soundworks?
I was a store manager, a retail store manager.
In that position, to what degree were you familiar with the actual systems that the Cambridge Soundworks sold?
Very familiar.
In your time at Facein Street, did you know any of your neighbors?
I know most of my neighbors by face.
Do you know the people that lived across the street at 10 Facein Street?
Yes.
And who were they?
Well, I knew Ursula as the parent and the landlord and her children.
Did you know Odin Lloyd?
I knew Odin, not personally, but I knew him. I knew of him, yes.
And could you just sort of describe what kind of a relationship, if any, you had with him?
It was just a neighborly relationship. Hi, bye, how are you? And that's it.
When, before June 17th of 2013, did you last see Odin Lloyd?
Maybe about 3 or 4 days prior to that. It was maybe Wednesday or Thursday of that week prior to the incident. This is prior to the 17th.
Where was he?
He was on Facein Street.
And where were you?
I was driving towards my house that day.
And was he doing anything in particular?
He was inside what it looked like a black SUV, listening to music, I guess.
Did you have any interaction with him at that time?
Yeah, just wave hello, and he waved back.
Where'd you go?
I went home.
Was that the extent of your memory of that particular incident?
Yes.
Did you ever see him again?
No.
With regards to your knowledge and understanding of computer systems, or video systems, excuse me, can you characterize that for the jury?
As a hobbyist, I've been able to learn about different systems and different things, and I've picked up anything from TVs to surveillance systems.
And do you have one on your home?
I do.
Can you describe that for the jury, please?
I set up 8 cameras around my perimeter that focused around my own home, just to see what goes on, at night or day, or just I did it as a little hobby at first.
Okay. Do any of those cameras face the street?
Yes.
And how many?
3 of the cameras, 3 out of the 8 cameras face the street.
And just with regards to where they are on your building, where are they sort of hanging from?
One hangs from under the porch facing my gate to the driveway. One also faces the driveway and where I would park my car normally, and the other one faces the sidewalk of my neighbor on the other side of the house.
May I approach you? May I approach you?
May.
Thanks. show you this photograph and ask if you recognize what that is.
I do, yes.
What is that?
It's a camera.
Do you know where that camera is on your home?
That is facing the front of my driveway.
Okay. And I have this marked, Your Honor?
No objection, Your Honor.
Let me mark this next exhibit.
Show you this photograph and ask if you recognize what that is.
This is the same camera as the prior one.
And with regards to that particular view, if you were facing your house, is that on the left or the right?
That will be on the right side.
Okay. May I have that marked for you?
No objection.
Maybe mark this next exhibit.
Show you this photograph, ask if you recognize what that is.
It's also a camera facing the gate of my driveway.
Okay, and where is that on your home?
It's on the soffit of the porch.
Front porch, back porch?
Front porch.
And does that fairly accurately represent the way the camera was in June of 2017?
Yes, it hasn't been changed.
May I move to admit that as well?
No objection.
Maybe mark this next exhibit.
Let me ask you to take a look at this picture. Do you recognize what that is?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
This is the cameras facing the left side of my home while standing in front of while facing Facein Street, sorry.
With regards to the other photos, are those on the same side or the other side?
The other side.
And could you just point out to me the camera now?
There's one there and one back here.
Okay. And move to admit this as well.
No objection.
Maybe mark this next exhibit.
Show you this photograph, ask if you would know what that is.
That is my home.
And is that the way it looked in June of 2013?
Yes.
And does that fairly and accurately represent the way it looked at that time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll move to admit that as well.
No objection.
Maybe mark this next exhibit.
And may I use the overhead? Starting backwards, sir, number 176. If you could just sort of tell the jury what we're looking at here,
This is the front of my home.
okay? And if you could, sir, the three different cameras we just worked with in the other photos, could you point out where they are in regards to this particular picture?
One would be right in the, on the post, like right up on the left side of the home, of that porch.
So I'm going to
And,
put my finger here to tell me if,
yes,
where you just were pointing.
right on there, yes.
Okay.
And the other one will be on the left side of the house and the other one on the right side of the house.
One here and then one on the other side?
Yes, sir.
And the two on the sides, where do they point?
They point towards the front of the home.
And the one that's on the porch, where does that point?
It faces towards the sidewalk.
With regards to those angles, sir, did you bring anything with you here to court today?
I do have, yes.
Could you describe for the jury what that is that you brought here to court with regards to those particular camera angles?
These are the three camera angles, or the three recordings from those three camera angles.
And when you say that those are the particular recordings from those camera angles, were those particular DVDs that you have in your hand supplied by our office?
Yes,
Okay, and when we gave those to you, did we ask you to do something with them?
You asked to verify the authenticity of them versus the original recording that I have.
Do you still have that recording?
I do.
And did you do that?
Yes.
How did you do that?
I played them both back and made sure that they were both authentic.
Okay. When you say both, what are you referring to? What are the two pieces of the both, if you will?
My recording on my hard drive versus the recording on the CDs.
And were there any discrepancies at all?
No, sir.
Okay. With regards to the time in the video, did you take note that there was a time?
There was a time, yes. They were all around 2:32 a.m., June 17th.
Do you know if your system was accurate with regards to time?
Yes.
And were the videos, do the times in the videos that you brought with here today reflect the accurate time?
Yes.
I'm going to move to admit those.
No objection, Your Honor.
Mark as next exhibits.
Come back approach the judge, just a little foundation for each one. 177, sir, that particular DVD, that's the marking of the court number 177.
Yes.
What does that show?
That's so each camera is numbered, so that would be angle number 7
Okay.
on my system.
And what night was this?
That was the June 17th, 2 a.m., like the 2 a.m. range.
Okay. And with regards to number 178, which camera number is that?
That would be angle number 4.
And with regards to 179, which camera is that?
Angle number 3.
Your Honor, request to play these at this time? Just hold that for a second. Thank you. Just with regards to the time and date stamp at the bottom there, sir, do you see the time and date stamp at the bottom?
I do.
Could you just point out for the jury, please, is it the date on the left and then the time is on the right?
Yes, sir.
And as far as you know, let's strike that. You know that to be an accurate time and date?
Yes.
All right. Go ahead. Mr. Reset, stop the video for a second. Where from this camera angle is Mr. Lloyd's home?
Mr. Lloyd's home will be almost straight across from where the white van is.
On the same side of the street as the white van or across the street from it?
On the same side of the street as the white van.
Okay. Go ahead. The individual who just walked across the screen, do you recognize who that is?
Objection.
Do you recognize who that is?
Based on how he walks, it definitely looks like Mr. Lloyd.
Sir, that light that just came on there, is that a part of your home system?
It's a sensor light that I purposely put on there so that it will go off at night.
Stop. Is it sensitive enough to pick up that cat?
Yes.
Sir, for the record, which camera angle was that?
Camera angle 3.
And that's exhibit 179.
Which exhibit is being played now?
Oh, yeah, pop it out for a second. Camera 4. Oh, exhibit 178.
Thank you.
Okay, what angle are we looking at here?
This is the angle from the left side of the home
Left side as you face it, or left side as you face out of it?
as you face out of it.
Okay. Stop for a second. If I could, sir, where is Blue Hill Ave from this view?
Blue Hill Ave will be towards the left side of the view.
Okay. And the direction, is that a bi-directional street or a one-way street?
One-way street.
And which way is the one-way?
From right to left.
So heading towards Blue Hill Ave?
Yes, sir.
For the record, that was video exhibit number 178, which is marked as camera 4. Mr. V, this is camera 7, which is marked as exhibit 177. Which angle from, which camera is this from?
This is from camera 7 facing the gate.
Okay, with regards to that white van in the image, where is Mr. Lloyd's home?
Right in front of the white van.
Just point it out for me.
Right here.
For the record, is that the light-colored building just beyond the van?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead. Your Honor, may I approach at this time? May I approach, Your Honor? Ask you to take a look at this image.
Yes,
Okay. Does this, which camera is this image taken from?
the same as the one on the screen, I believe is camera 7.
And is this part of the images that you reviewed when you reviewed the video?
Yes, sir.
And if you could just take note of the time at the bottom there.
2:29.
Okay. Is this particular time that's located here contained on the video that you reviewed?
Yes,
So is it coming up in a little bit?
yes, sir.
Move to admit this, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor.
Maybe mark as next exhibit.
Why,
If I could just publish this. Number 180. With regards to this particular still, sir, could you point out for me Mr. Lloyd's home?
Right across the way from my gate.
You pointed here.
Yes.
Do you know if he lived on the left or the right side of that building?
No, I know they own the home, but
Okay. And with regards to this item right here, do you recognize what that is?
the car?
Yes.
Yes.
Which car was that?
Well, I don't know whose car it was, but it's like an SUV that was parked there.
Was that the car that you saw Mr. Lloyd in earlier in the week?
Yes.
as number 177.
We're going to stop at this time, resume at 2 o'clock. Remind everyone they don't discuss the case among themselves or anyone else.